Perito Moreno Glacier in the Patagonia is one of the few glaciers on Earth that still advances, periodically smashing colossal ice arches into thunderous collapse. Do you know Laguna Colorada's shallow waters turn deep crimson from microalgae and minerals, attracting thousands of flamingos that feed in waters toxic to most other life? Ushuaia in Argentina is one of the planet's rare places where glaciers, subpolar forests, and the Beagle Channel meet within city limits. Do you know that Ushuaia is the launching point for expeditions to the Antarctic Peninsula and shelters the world's southernmost penguin colonies? From the harbor, the Marshall Glacier hangs over the town like a frozen guardian, while in the opposite direction, Tierra del Fuego National Park unfolds with windswept bays, lenga woods, and peat bogs. The route from the old prison along the end of the world train tracks traces the town's transformation from penal outpost to a nature gateway, connecting human history to wild landscapes. Boat trips through the Beagle Channel thread between rocky isles where sea lions, sun, and black-browed albatross wheel against cobalt skies. On remote islands, you can watch Gentoo and Magellanic penguins waddle across beaches, a living reminder that life thrives at the planet's edge. Hikers climb lenga-studded ridges to peer into glacial cirques, and in winter, skiers find short, fierce seasons beneath snow-laden peaks. Fishermen, scientists, and cruise passengers share the same docks, turning this compact town into a crossroads between everyday life and polar adventure. Local museums and indigenous exhibits reveal early Fuegian cultures and the harsh realities of 19th century penal settlements, grounding the dramatic landscape in human stories. Street-side restaurants draw from the sea, serving king crab and Patagonian toothfish, linking the flavors of the channel to centuries of maritime tradition. As you stand on the shore, the horizon pulls you southward toward Cape Horn and the ice-stitched routes of Antarctic voyagers, a continuous line from town to continent. Ushuaia's light is different too. Long summer twilights and crisp winter clarity that change how colors and cliffs reveal themselves, making every hour feel like a discovery. This is a place where the map's end becomes the beginning of curiosity, where small boats and large dreams depart beneath the same sky. Stay with us, and we'll follow those departures, trace the wildlife, the glaciers, and the human threads that make Ushuaia both an outfit and an invitation. Laguna Colorada's shallow, blood-red waters host one of the world's densest concentrations of James's flamingos. Do you know, Laguna Colorada's crimson hue comes from pigmented algae and mineral deposits that stain the high plains basins. At nearly 4,300 meters, the lake sits like a red jewel on Bolivia's cold altiplano. White borax crusts lace the shoreline, creating a stark frame that makes the red appear almost surreal against the sky. Flocks of pink flamingos feed in shallow waters, their synchronized movements, writing slow calligraphy across the lake's surface. Their presence depends on microscopic life forms and delicate chemical balances, making the lake an indicator of environmental shifts. The Eduardo Alvaro Reserve surrounds the basin, where rangers guard fragile habitats, and volcanic geology reveals its fingerprints in every pool. Seasonal runoffs and mineral-rich springs keep pigments flowing, so colors flare and fade with weather and altitude. From Laguna Colorada, the road climbs toward steaming geysers at Sol de Mañana, where the earth seems to boil just beyond view. That same mineral story carried onward creates the blank, reflective expanse of Salar de Uyuni, linking these extremes into one dramatic journey. In winter, the cold sharpens the air, and by night, the stars drape the plain like a second universe glaring down. Local guides recount ancient caravan routes and salt trade histories that threaded these lakes and flats, connecting cultures across the high desert. To stand here is to witness a living geology book, every hue and ridge a page of slow, relentless change. When dawn breaks, the red again blazes, and the landscape seems to be nudging travelers onward, toward the mirror of the salt flats. Photographers and scientists alike come for the color, but most leave with a humbling sense of time written in stone and water. We continue from Laguna Colorada toward Uyuni, where salt and sky will trade places and the high plateau will reveal another secret. Angel Falls in Venezuela plunges 979 meters, making it the tallest uninterrupted waterfall on Earth and creating a mist that feeds its own rainforest. Do you know, Angel Falls was discovered by pilot Jimmy Angel in 1933, but has been sacred to the Paman people for centuries under the name Karepakupai Meru. The water begins its descent from the summit of Auyan Tepuy, a tabletop mountain whose sandstone cliffs are remnants of an ancient Precambrian plateau. Those sheer walls are older than the Amazon basin itself and shelter plant and animal species found nowhere else on Earth. On many days, the torrent never reaches the plunge pool as winds shred the column into a fine veil that evaporates before touching the ground. Locals call it the river that vanishes, and scientists use it as a living laboratory for studying microclimates. Pilots who first flew over the tepuis reported feeling like they were seeing the Earth's skeleton, a primeval landscape that inspired early science fiction. Winds and mist carve ephemeral rainbows and spray that can travel hundreds of meters, painting the air in shifting colors at dawn. Beneath the constant roar, indigenous stories speak of spirits and ancestors living within the rocks, an oral history that predates written maps. Today, scientists and Paman elders often collaborate, blending modern ecology with traditional knowledge to protect this singular place. Even with modern satellites and drones, visiting Angel Falls still feels like stepping into a lost world, where gravity, geology, and weather conspire to produce something almost unreal. What ancient processes raised the tepuis, and how will climate change alter the mist and streams that sustain this isolated ecosystem? As the sun slides behind the tepuis, the canyon fills with mist and silence, a reminder that Earth's most spectacular features are still evolving. We will follow river guides and scientists deeper into the canyon to uncover how Angel Falls endures and what its future holds. Perito Moreno Glacier is one of the few glaciers in the world that is still advancing rather than retreating. Do you know Perito Moreno Glacier periodically forms a natural ice dam across the Brazo Rico of Lago Argentino, raising the lake by several meters until a dramatic rupture releases the pressure? From the wooden walkways, visitors feel the constant groan of compressing ice and watch blocks the size of apartment buildings calve into turquoise water. The glacier's face can tower over 60 meters above the lake surface, revealing layers of blue ice sculpted by centuries of pressure and time. Unlike many polar ice masses, Perito Moreno is fed by the vast southern Patagonian ice field, a temperate ice reserve that feeds dozens of rivers and glaciers across the region. Its dense ice absorbs red light and reflects deep blues, giving the glacier that surreal, glassy hue that people travel continents to photograph. Scientists study Perito Moreno because its advancing behavior offers clues about local climate, glacier dynamics, and how ice can sometimes resist broader warming trends. Local guides will tell you that the most unforgettable moments are the ruptures, when the dam collapses with a bass rumble and towering walls of water cascade back into the main lake. For adventurous visitors, guided ice trekking lets you cross crevassed blue fields where every crunch underfoot is a reminder of ancient snowfall pressed into solidity. Still, the safest and most popular vantage is from the curated platform network, which frames the glacier like a living monument in constant motion. Perito Moreno also influences local wildlife life, chilling winds that shape lenga forests and feeding nutrient-rich waters where Andean condors and Austral geese hunt and drift. Its presence has guided human settlements and inspired Argentine folklore, with stories describing ice giants and tidal clashes between land and Schiamae. From here, the landscape flows toward other giants, the massive ice tongues of Uppsala and Spegazzini, which we'll explore next to understand how one ice country connects to another. Standing before Perito Moreno, you don't just see frozen water. You witness a living column of Earth's hydrological memory, still breaking and rebuilding as the seasons demand. Every rupture, every inch of advance, is a page in the glacier's slow biography, readable if you know how to listen to cracking ice and shifting light. And as the sun sets over Lago Argentino, the glacier's blues deepen, promising that the spectacle is far from over. Vast otherworldly freshwater lagoons appear each rainy season between miles of blinding white dunes at Lençóis Maranhenses National Park. Do you know Lençóis Maranhenses is one of the only places on Earth where annual rains carve hundreds of crystal-clear pools out of shifting desert sand? The lagoons can swell so quickly that small streams appear overnight, linking pools that looked isolated the day before. When the dry season arrives, those same pools shrink and vanish, leaving skeletal dunes that hide the memory of water beneath their ridges. Local fishermen time their seasons to track the lagoons, navigating a landscape that becomes both sea and desert within months. Birds and fish exploit this rhythm, colonizing pockets of fresh water and dispersing when the rains reconnect the lagoon network. From above, the dunes resemble pleated sheets, hence the park's name. But beneath that linen-like surface lies a fragile freshwater ecosystem. The white sand comes from centuries of beach erosion, pushed inland by Atlantic winds, which link the park's dunes to the nearby coastline. Preserving Lençóis Maranhenses means protecting not just sand and water, but the invisible timing between rain and drought that lets life flourish here. As we move from these shifting white fields toward the mangroves and estuaries of the Maranhão coast, you'll see how ocean, wind, and river stitch this unusual landscape into the larger story of Brazil's northern frontier. In that junction, the park becomes a hinge between inland river systems and the vast Atlantic, a place where distant ecosystems touch and exchange life. Understanding Lençóis Maranhenses helps explain how fragile margins on this continent sustain extraordinary pockets of biodiversity against the odds. Few landscapes combine ancient quartzite plateaus, ribbon-like waterfalls, and a cerrado ecosystem so unique as Chapada dos Veadeiros in Brazil. Do you know, Chapada dos Veadeiros National Park shelters fields of crystalline quartz that can concentrate sunlight and create optical phenomena rare worldwide. The plateau was formed over 1 billion years ago, its stone and soil telling a geological story older than most continents. Streams carved deep canyons and laid bare layers of time, producing plunging falls that feed pools of astonishing clarity. Endemic plants here evolved to survive fire and drought, creating a patchwork of grassland and forest you won't find elsewhere. Birds and butterflies adapted to the Cerrado live alongside jaguars and maned wolves, blurring the lines between savanna and tropical wilderness. Local rivers run over smooth quartz, polishing the rock until it glows, and in dry season, the exposed stones glitter like scattered glass. At dawn, mist lifts from savanna grasses and quartz ridges catch the light, revealing colors that change by the minute. Scientists still discover species here, small frogs and insects that exist only within narrow altitude bands. Such endemic life underscores how Chapada acts as a biological island in a sea of changing landscapes. Conservation challenges are real, from fire management to tourism pressure, forcing creative local solutions. But these efforts also create stories of regeneration as degraded slopes green again and river health improves. Follow a river downstream from the plateau, and you can trace ecological threads reaching toward the Pantanal and beyond. Aconcagua, at 6,961 meters, stands as the highest peak outside Asia and the crown of the Americas. Do you know Aconcagua's summit lives in a thin, almost lunar atmosphere, where oxygen drops to barely half of what we breathe at sea level, forcing climbers into a different rhythm of life and time? Unlike many towering giants, Aconcagua's standard trail is non-technical, yet ruthlessly exposed to wind and sudden storms that can turn success into tragedy in hours. That contrast, accessible routes layered with lethal conditions, has shaped an unshakable of high-altitude endurance, bringing mountaineers, scientists, and shepherds to the same slopes. Its name likely comes from Quechua, often translated as Stone Sentinel, and carries centuries of indigenous reverence and stories etched into the rock. Yet in 1897, Swiss climber Matthias Zurbriggen's recorded ascent announced Aconcagua to the modern climbing world and began an era of international expeditions. Glaciers cling to its flanks, relics of colder ages that nevertheless feed streams carving through Mendoza's valleys and reaching vineyards below. These ice fields exist within a surprising rain shadow, an arid mosaic where desert foothills meet perennial snow, producing one of the continent's most dramatic environmental juxtapositions. Protected by Aconcagua Provincial Park, the mountain highlights ongoing tensions between growing adventure tourism and fragile high-altitude ecosystems. From its ridge lines, you can trace the Andes backbone stretching south toward Patagonia and north into the Altiplano, linking glaciers, plateaus, and distant rainforests. At extreme elevations, climbers sometimes find fossilized seashells embedded in ancient strata, a stark geological reminder that these peaks rose from former ocean floors. That transformation, tectonic might sculpting life and culture, makes Aconcagua more than a summit. It is a junction where geology, history, and human aspiration converge. Iguazu Falls spills over basalt cliffs where more than 270 cataracts carve a thunderous frontier between Argentina and Brazil. Fed by the Iguazu River, the falls send mist columns that rise like living mountains of vapor. Far from a single drop, Iguazu is a labyrinth of cascades, islands, and plunging curtains that shift with the seasons. That mosaic of water supports pockets of Atlantic forest, home to jaguars, toucans, and orchids clinging to damp rock. Walkways thread into the spray toward Devil's Throat, where dozens of channels collapse into one immense plunge. The sound there is architectural, shaping the terrain and thickening the air you breathe. Early explorers mistook the roar for storms trapped underground, a misreading of scale and motion. Today, scientists and guardians balance tourism and conservation to protect floodplain forests and migratory routes. On Brazil's side, panoramic overlooks reveal the full sweep, while Argentina's trails let you step into the roar. Cross-border currents of culture and ecology make Iguazu a living border between nations and biomes. Water at Iguazu is a sculptor, carving basalt, nourishing wetlands, and feeding the Paraná River toward the sea. When the fog thins, you can trace links from these falls to the Misiones jungle and to distant river systems. Every drop connects places, the highlands that birth the river, the falls that sculpt its passage, and the plains that receive it. Follow Iguazu's trail, and you are led toward other South American wonders, where water shapes life in unexpected ways. In the next sections, we will step closer to single cascades, meet those who protect them, and uncover secrets in the spray. Prepare to feel why Iguazu is not just seen, but remembered. The continent's watery conscience, whispering South America's story. Mount Fitz Roy in Argentine Patagonia juts from the ice like a knife of granite, its sheer, razor-edged spires among the steepest unbroken faces on Earth. Do you know that the locals call it Cerro Chaltén, or Smoking Mountain, because a permanent halo of clouds often crowns its summit, tricking early explorers into thinking it was volcanic. Climbers worldwide revere Fitz Roy, not for height, but for impossible technical challenges, where fragile weather windows turn a routine ascent into a week-long siege. Its northern flank drains into Laguna de los Tres, whose turquoise meltwaters reflect the peak so perfectly that visitors feel they are looking at another planet. Beneath those cliffs lie hidden routes carved by glacial ice, and the Fitz Roy Massif stands at the edge of the vast southern Patagonian ice field, the largest temperate ice expanse outside the poles. Few know that some of the granite forming Fitz Roy is over 3 million years old, a stubborn relic of ancient mountain building that resisted the slow crush of glaciers. cartographers named it for Robert Fitz Roy, the captain of the Beagle. Yet indigenous Tehuelche people long revered Chaltén as a living presence and a weather oracle. As storms barrel through the Andean Gap, winds shape the clouds into constant veils that make photography as much a gamble as the climbs themselves. From the base camp at El Chaltén, trails knit together lagoons, moraines, and lichen-sprinkled meadows, leading hikers through a landscape where geology reads like an epic. This cross-border conversation shapes migration routes, plant zones, and the dramatic weather patterns that make Patagonia a study in extremes. Yet despite its fame among climbers and photographers, Fitz Roy keeps secrets. Microclimates trapped in shadowed cirques, rare alpine orchids clinging to seam cracks, and caves warmed by geothermal quirks. Scientists return season after season, mapping ice retreat and rockfall patterns that quietly rewrite our understanding of mountain survival. To stand at Laguna Capri at dawn is to watch the peak behave like a slow theater. Colors deepen, shadows sharpen, and if clouds part, Fitz Roy reveals a silhouette that has inspired poems, gaucho tales, and modern adventure lore. What follows in the rest of this film is a journey from that silhouette, down into the glaciers, across the steppes, and into the human stories that Fitz Roy has shaped for centuries. You'll meet climbers whose hands remember every crack, ranchers whose stories nodded with the mountain's shadow, and scientists whose instruments whisper the pace of change. And by the end, Fitz Roy will stop being a distant icon and become a living, breathing measure of Patagonia's past and its precarious future. Towering granite spires in Torres del Paine National Park in Chile pierce a sky shaped by ice and wind in a formation found almost nowhere else on Earth. Do you know Torres del Paine's glacier-fed lakes can flip color from turquoise to deep green overnight because of shifting glacial flour and suspended minerals? Beyond the colors, the park hides a geological secret. The three towers themselves are the exposed cores of an ancient magma chamber, revealed as glaciers carved away softer rock. The result is a theater of light and motion, where peaks, ice, and water rewrite the map of the horizon every day. Despite brutal winds that can topple a person, this mosaic of steppe, forest, glacier, and lake supports elusive predators like pumas and herds of guanacaste. Only a handful of places on Earth still sustain such intact predators and migratory herds so close to the southern Patagonian ice field. The land preserves footprints of ancient peoples and more recent tales of gauchos who tested themselves against the wind. Hidden lakes hold peat-preserved remains and fossils that chronicle climate swings going back thousands of years. From here, waterways cut toward the Beagle Channel and the storm-sculpted passages that lead down to Tierra del Fuego. It is a hinge between the raw Patagonian steppe and the ice-laced channels that ferry seals, albatross, and coastal currents to distant islands. What you won't expect are the small miracles: moss that glows under moonlight and stones smoothed into perfect basins by millennia of meltwater. Stay with us, and we'll follow an iceberg into a mirror lake, track a puma's silent route, and uncover the science that explains why this corner of Chile seems to rewrite geological rules. Hikers come to test themselves on the W circuit and to stand within meters of walls of ice that shift and groan. Scientists listen to those groans to measure glacier motion, decoding a climate narrative written in ice and stone. By the end of this visit, you'll understand why Torres del Paine is not only a spectacle, but a living laboratory of extremes. Come closer as we step from wind-scoured ridges into glacier's secret world and reveal the rare forces that forged this place. Fernando de Noronha harbors one of the world's last intact marine turtle nurseries, where green and hawksbill turtles nest on the same beaches in astonishing density. Do you know, Fernando de Noronha's shallow bays gather entire populations of spinner dolphins that perform synchronized pocket formations each evening. Volcanic cliffs plunge into translucent waters, revealing coral gardens more commonly associated with Pacific atolls. Its reef system serves as a living corridor, connecting South Atlantic currents and coastal Brazil, steering migrations from the continent into the open ocean. Bahia do Sancho, often named the world's best beach, conceals caves where rays and turtles rest just beneath the surface. Beyond the sand, the archipelago's seabeds host rare sponge forests and fish species found nowhere else on the continent. Strict visitor caps and marine protection mean the islands act like an underwater museum, preserving centuries of ecological memory. Scientists come to Noronha not only to study coral health, but to map how larvae and nutrients travel along South America's coasts. On land, endemic birds and hardy plant communities cling to promontories carved by ancient eruptions. The island's human story, from pirates to whalers to modern conservationists, has shaped a precarious balance between use and protection. From this volcanic stage, threads tie it to the Amazon plume and the atolls of Atol das Rocas, forming a network of South Atlantic life. Noronha plays a disproportionate role as a hinge between mainland nutrient flows and open ocean biodiversity, far larger than its tiny footprint suggests. Yet locals still speak of a sea secret, an underwater chasm where swirling currents make an optical mirage that confounds hunters and prey alike. Next, we dive into that chasm, follow migratory highways, and uncover how this remote chain became both sanctuary and signal for the South Atlantic's future. We'll meet fishermen turned guardians, witness nocturnal coral spawns that briefly light the bay, and learn why some species survive only because of the island's isolation and shelter. Along the Caribbean shore where jungle meets surf, Colombia's Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta rises from sea level to over 5,700 meters, making it the highest coastal mountain range on Earth. Do you know, Tayrona National Park is one of the rare places where tropical rainforest plunges directly into the Caribbean, creating beaches framed by ancient mangroves and emerald peaks. This collision of ecosystems produces microclimates that shelter species found nowhere else on the continent. Hidden among the palms are ruins and burial terraces of the original Tayrona people, their stonework stitched into the coastline for centuries. Visitors follow narrow paths that thread through ceiba trees and past waterfalls, each turn revealing a new palette of greens and blues. The park's beaches, from the wide sands of Cabo San Juan to the secretive coves along the Gairaca Trail, are living mosaics of coral gardens and tidal pools. Marine currents and river runoffs nurture coral communities that feed turtles, tropical fish, and the migratory birds of the Caribbean flyway. Up above, the slopes host endemic orchids, hummingbirds with impossibly quick wings, and frogs that blink like jewels in the understory. For indigenous communities, Tayrona is not just landscape but memory, a sacred map of myths, ancestral paths, and seasonal rituals. Archaeologists still uncover terraces and pottery fragments that rewrite what we know about pre-Columbian coastal societies. Because the mountains rise so close to the sea, cloud forests spill down to lowland mangroves, allowing species to nestle together across short distances. That steep gradient means a single hike can move you through climates that elsewhere would take days to cross. The park's protections have become a fragile experiment in balancing tourism, conservation, and indigenous rights. Rangers and local communities work together to limit visitor numbers in sensitive coves and to restore coral nurseries damaged by moss neglect. Yet even protected, Tayrona reveals secrets slowly: a tucked-away stone path, a reef that glows after a full moon, a scent trail that leads a jaguarundi across a creek. These small revelations open a larger question about how we value places where earth and ocean converge. From Tayrona, the story flows inland to the Sierra Nevada and onward to the Lost City, where the same people carved terraces higher on the slopes. Exploring Tayrona is thus not an end but a primer, a way to understand the coastal pulse that shaped much of northern Colombia's culture and biodiversity. We began in the emerald labyrinth of the Amazon, where rivers carve secrets into the world's largest rainforest. Then we climbed the Andes, where ancient stone and thin air tell stories older than most nations. From the otherworldly salt flats of Salar de Uyuni to the steaming geysers and yellow deserts of the Altiplano, landscapes shift like chapters in an epic. The Atacama's impossible moonscapes lead us to skies so clear they rewrite what we thought the night looks like. On the Pacific edge, the Galapagos offered evolutionary experiments written in real time, while further north, the limestone curtain of Iguazu reveals water's theatrical power. Across the plateaus and pampas, the Pantanal and the wetlands stage one of the planet's richest wildlife performance. Patagonia's glaciers and basalt spires remind us that cold can sculpt some of the fiercest beauty, and its wind-swept roads connect naturally to the southern seas. At high altitude, Machu Picchu sits like a question carved into the mountains, and nearby valleys keep centuries of human ingenuity humming under moss. Cities like Rio de Janeiro and Buenos Aires thread culture and celebration through nature, showing how people have learned to dance with these dramatic backdrops. Even remote places like Easter Island and the tepuis of Venezuela whisper about isolation, mystery, and human imagination stretching across continents. If this continent teaches one thing, it is how extremes of heat and cold, flood and drought, silence and thunder live together in a single living tapestry. Carry these places with you as invitations to think differently, to travel farther, and to protect the rare processes that make South America unlike anywhere else on Earth.